My name is Andrew Walton. I'm a sergeant in the Royal Dragoon Guards, which is an armoured cavalry regiment in the British Army.
When did you first realise you wanted to be a member of the armed forces?
I think I always knew since I was at school, so around about finishing school, around about 1995, I knew it was something I wanted to do. So my first port of call was the Armed Forces Careers Office in Bradford. It told me I was a little bit too young and I had to wait 9 months. So 9 months later I went and I joined the Royal Armoured Corps, going through training at Winchester, starting in March 1996.
And then moving then, sort of what was your first deployment? Do you want to just talk to us a bit about your career once you got actually into the Corps?
Well, once I first got into the Corps, I had to kind of look at what regiment I wanted to join. And the Royal Dragoon Guards were local to Bradford. A lot of the boys within there are from Bradford as well, so a bit of an easy decision there to go with them. I then went and joined my regiment in Tidworth in Wiltshire, so around about Salisbury area. And my first taste of an operations as such was doing a short tour of Northern Ireland during the marching season, which was quiet but eventful in places.
How did that feel for you being a part of that?
A little bit strange, because obviously everybody spoke English and etc, etc. You hear all these stories about their improvised explosive devices and people trying to shoot you and blow you up and stuff all the time, but it just didn't seem to be that way. As I said, it was only a short tour, so I was only there for a month and a half in total, not like the other tours of Afghanistan, Iraq and stuff, which have been 6 months long.
So talk to us about Afghanistan and Iraq. Are they the sort of the most dangerous operations you've been?
Yeah, I'd say more so Afghanistan over Iraq. It's quite hard really, because when you go out to places like that, you're not against an enemy that wears a uniform, so everybody around there, you just think sees everybody is against you. However, some of the populace was there and to greet you, and well, they saw you there really to change their life, as well as everything else, and going through and making their life peaceful. Iraq was a little bit different, because I started off in the south of Iraq, in the area of Basra, and then I moved up into Baghdad. Baghdad was eye-opener, because it's more westernised than it was in the south, and seeing the areas that Saddam Hussein had terrorised over the years, and seeing all the effigies of him, all the statues of that being pulled down, stuff which there was a little bit of a sight to behold, especially his own parade ground with the crossroads. It was quite eerie walking around them areas, but as I say, I wasn't there on a sightseeing thing. I had a job to do within them areas. Afghanistan, totally different kettle of fish. I was out there in the desert most of the time on a Viking armoured vehicle, going around providing escorts for all the logistics chains to basically transfer up and down the country within the area of Helmand, and also there to give support on a large operation which was publicised as Mostrak, which was one of the biggest operations since the World Wars.
So what was your role in Afghanistan and Iraq then? What was your job out there?
In Iraq, I was employed as a troop corporal. Basically, I had my own vehicle and stuff, top cover. As I said, when we were down south, we did more like looking after people, doing the hearts and minds piece. As whereas when I moved up north to Baghdad, it moved in a bit more of conventional peacekeeping. For example, all the logistics chains going along the main route from the centre of Baghdad up to the airport. We was there to protect all the logistics chains coming back, giving the fulfillment and all the things that was required to keep the military operating within that area. In Afghanistan, again, I still went out there as a troop corporal, but I was part of the intelligence gathering role. I ran the operations room, which is basically a centre where everything was controlled from my troops out on the ground. But I also went out again on the Viking armoured vehicle as part of a 4-vehicle group within my troop to basically help out the wider squadron and obviously the task force helmets out there as well in Afghanistan.
How did that feel to be out there, serving your country and helping other people, maybe the less advantaged? How did that feel? Was there any nervousness, or was it pride? How did you feel?
It was a mixture. It was one of those where you join up the armed forces to do something like this, 'cause otherwise what's the point in joining up if you don't want to go to anywhere where there's a little bit of conflict. However, going out there, it was a little bit air raising at times. You had a little bit of excitement. I think that Afghanistan was slightly different for me, because when I went out there I had a 2-year-old son, which was constantly on the back of my mind. However, if you ask my wife, she said I had a switch which I just switched off, and that I just totally forgot about family when I was out there. I did what I had to do, and I went and I came home. The fact I was out there trying to help the Afghan nationals resurrect their country and take everything away from what the Taliban was doing, and obviously at the later stage ISIS, it was a little bit strange, because even though some of them wanted you there helping them, you got that general consensus and that feeling that really whatever you did, it wouldn't make a difference. As soon as you went into one area, you pushed the insurgency out of the way, that straight behind you again, it was like a vacuum, they all sucked straight back into place, and they just carried on with their natural way of living.
How did your family feel? Obviously, you mentioned you had a 2-year-old son. Going back out there, what was their feelings?
It's difficult really. My son being 2 years old was none the wiser. If I'm being brutally honest, he just saw me being there one day and then reappearing a couple of months later when I came off for a couple of weeks break, and then reappear again at the very end. My wife, she obviously took on the role of mum and dad with my son, which I can only say thanks to her for, because without her I don't think it'd have been so easy being out there and having to put up with everything that I did and deal with the stresses and the strains of being away on an operational tour, especially away from your family as well.
Did that make it tougher, having a young family, or was it, as you said, you flicked a switch and you had a job to do?
It had moments. I'm not going to lie, there were certain things when you came under contact, so what I mean by that is coming under enemy fire and stuff, so you're getting shot at and stuff, and sometimes you just sat there thinking, what the hell am I doing here? Why am I doing this? I always carried around a photograph of them both within my body armour, to try keeping them quite close to me and stuff, and then photographs came out when I needed it, in the hour of need and everything else, just to have a bit of reflection. And then, as I said, the switch was turned back on again, and I just went on my merry way and got on with what I had to do. At the end of the day, the family that I had out there in the band of brothers were the ones that I had to consider as well, and their safety, so they were the closest ones to me.
What was the most harrowing experience?
It was an operation where we went into Sangin, which was notorious for being one of the probably most dangerous places within Helmand itself. We were on an overwatch position. We was down on the ground. We had everybody up on top cover, which is where you have certain people up on machine gun posts looking, and there was a threat of snipers being out there. And to say the little bleeder found us was an understatement. We started receiving incoming and stuff, but as we got onto the vehicles and tried getting out of there, it was like the entire world in Sangin knew exactly where we were, what we were doing, and where we were going to go to, because we just seemed to follow and attract. It was like we were magnets to their bullets. Everywhere we went, we just received lots and lots of incoming from effective enemy fire, to the point where we managed to break clean and get out of there. And that was probably my first real feeling of being shot at and not being having an answer, because it was really hard to work out where they were coming back, where they were shooting from, and for us to give that effective fire back to keep their heads down and get us out of there safely, which luckily we did.
Was there ever a feeling that wouldn't be the case? Was there ever a feeling that there might not be a way out? You might never see your young family again?
No, never. I never had that feeling. I had really good and high confidence in all the training that I had, everything that I'd been through for me to cope with that kind of situation. As I said, if I didn't have had that switch, I could switch on and off, I think it may have been different. However, as soon as something like that happened, you just go straight into, like a robot, you're going straight into the drills that you've been taught, and you get yourself out there. End of the day, you've got somebody in front of you, back of you, left and right of you, who's been through the same training, and we did everything we could to get out of there. Obviously, some of the times when we were there was things that did go wrong, where we had to get other members of the squadron out of there because they'd been severely injured and stuff. But again, all down to training. We went back, and luckily for the unit I was with at the time, the 1st Royal Tank Regiment, everybody was home, maybe not in one piece, but we still got them all home, which was the main thing.
How did it feel seeing, you mentioned Band of Brothers, how did it feel seeing some of them severely injured?
It's hard really, so the training takes over. There's adrenaline, there's everything else, and you kind of just go straight in and you deal with whatever you've got to deal with. Because of my role at the time and the actual group of lads that I was with, I wasn't really at the forefront of any of that. It was other troops that were in between that, so I only really saw them afterwards. And hearing stories, like one of my best friends, his vehicle got came into contact from an IED, an improvised explosive device, and hearing his call sign that he was given coming over the radio and hearing it and knowing his wife, that was probably the biggest shock I had out there, because first thing I thought was, oh no, my mate Chris, that's him. But luckily I was taken to the side by the squadron leader, so my boss at the time, and he just sat me down and said, right, this is it, blah blah blah, everything's okay. The vehicle just had part of its wheels blown off, and that was it. So as I said, that's the only thing that I had out there of any fear as such, was when one of my closest friends was hit by an improvised explosive device.
So moving forward towards the end of your time out there, when did you first realise that your time would be coming to an end?
As in time in the forces?
As in time in the forces, yes. So as you come back to what some might say is reality, or a normal lifestyle away from the front line, when did that process begin?
The process, you always know roughly when you're going to be coming off from an operational tour. It's either going to be 6, 7, maybe 8 months, depending how lucky or unlucky you see it. So you always aim off at the final date. You can give yourself a couple of weeks for the RAF to make sure that they can bring you home and everything else from wherever you are. But once you're back in the UK or Germany, or wherever you might be based, you're constantly training. You're always on Salisbury Plain, Canada, or any other area where the British Army may have some kind of real estate for you to train on. Especially myself as a tank soldier, primarily by trade, obviously I needed a vast area. So being able to get out there and train is what you always did. However, knowing that when I was getting towards the end, knowing that roughly I wanted to serve full 22-year term, I knew that roughly a year ago that I had to look at what I was going to be doing. I was going to be where am I going to settle with my family officially, even though I've got a family home. All that kind of stuff started coming into play around about then. So roughly, I'd say about a year and a half ago.
So how did it feel when you were stepping foot on British soil for good, in a sense, and once your time had come to an end?
Relieved. I got offered, before I actually left the military, just recently, I got offered an extra 2 years on the end of my contract, and I also got offered time to spend with the Army Reserves, which is something I want to do. I felt my time had done. I'd done what I needed to do, and now it's time for myself and my family.
Was there a sense of pride in you and your family?
I'll always be proud. Always be proud of what I've achieved in the military, and the fact to say that I'm going to be an Armed Forces veteran makes me extremely chuffed.
So now obviously if we talk a bit about what you've been doing with the Bradford Bulls over the last 3 to 4 months, how did you come into contact with the club and how did that sort of relationship come to the fore?
Well, last year when I realised I was going to leave, I had a little project that I wanted to run, and that was to take the Super League Grand Final match ball via every single Super League ground and take it to Old Trafford and present it to the teams. So I set the ball rolling last year, managed to achieve it. We took the match ball from Perpignan via all 12 grounds and finished at Old Trafford. And besides all the Super League clubs, Bradford Bulls was the only club which enabled me to have any interaction outside of that franchise, which was of great immense pride to myself because it's my hometown club. It's the club I've supported and followed forever. So once that was done and I knew that I was going to resettle out of the army into civilian life, I approached Bradford Bulls, and with my newfound talents as a project manager, I wanted to actually put myself out there in the shop window and learn how a professional sports club and business operated. Bradford Bulls, I can thankfully say and gratefully say, have given me that opportunity. I've given everything I can into everything I've done, from golden ticket giveaways up to the point of what's next on the calendar is the Armed Forces Day celebrations here at Odsal.
How did you find the transition from being part of the Armed Forces back to almost like an office job? Was there a struggle period where you had to adapt mentally?
Not really, because the way that things went about here at Bradford Bulls, it was very much where things work. I wouldn't say that they're regimented or they're structured in such a way, but the staff, the camaraderie and everything else made it a lot easier. Because I always thought that once I leave I will never get that feeling of what I had in the Armed Forces with as I said before, the band of brothers, my close-knit group of friends and other soldiers that I've met, that you weren't able to have that kind of fun again, especially within a civilian role. How wrong am I? It's been an absolute blast, and I highly recommend it to anybody that if they get the opportunity to work here, it's one of the things I'd do first and foremost.
And now you've taken on the role as project manager for Armed Forces Day. Can you just tell us a bit about what Armed Forces Day will involve?
Well, Armed Forces Day here at Odsal Stadium will involve a curtain raiser between the Bradford Bulls women's select team against the UK Armed Forces women's team. Obviously the main event of the day will be Bradford Bulls versus Halifax for the next episode in that saga, and we'll have on the terraces approximately 8 regiments varying from infantry, artillery to the Royal Armoured Corps. We'll have a kids fun zone, and we'll also have the Silver Stars Royal Logistic Corps Army parachute display team will be coming in with a match ball just before kick-off. There'll also be a gun salute from the Royal Artillery, and all this will be in aid of raising £10,000 for the Army Benevolent Fund.
How did it feel for you being a part of this project and helping people whose shoes you were in 12 months ago?
Again, immensely proud. I couldn't say anything less than that. It's my way of giving something back, not only to the ABF, who I did things for last year, to the Army or the wider Armed Forces, but also something back for the club as well. And it's a way of myself being able to project myself, put myself forward, so that if anything else needs to be done in the future, then I'm here to help.
Have you got a final parting message to all involved in Armed Forces Day?
Just come show your support. For £10 for an adult into Odsal Stadium is great value for money, especially everything else that will be on show. And if we can raise that £10,000 for our benevolent fund, we will be making an absolute massive difference to everybody in the Armed Forces. So come on, let's get it on.